as one of the heads of the Defence Force asserted yesterday, that in fact it's illegal to take photographs of members of the Defence Force. Now, as far as I can establish, and the lawyers among us can probably speak to this slightly more, is that in fact there is no such provision in the Defence Act. There is something which refers to willful obstruction, and there are also clear no-nos in terms of taking photographs of military bases and so on. But the point is, if we could use examples like this one to bring it home to our population how vital access to information is, to know about our laws, to know about the do's and don'ts, so that one doesn't get into situations where you can also risk your lives. That having been said, obviously this was a totally draconian move by the Defence Force, and as Graham also says, clearly a dampener when it comes to elections, because I think once there's fear among the population, that's not conducive to high voting turnouts. Another point just on the elections aspect and access to information is the fact that we are almost, I think, within days of 2 months of the elections. And, you know, everybody is saying, everybody must vote, everybody must vote. And I must say, I take a contrary view for the time being, because 2 months before elections, and I think there's one party that has released its manifesto. For the rest, it's a case of promises, it will be out soon. And to me, there's little point in voting if it's not an informed vote. So again, that brings us back to the importance of access to information and Action's platform in this regard, to actually really put pressure on the parties to say, you need to be accountable to the voters and show them what you stand for. I always use the example of citizens who are involved in whatever area of life. If, for example, environmental issues are your thing, how are you going to make a decision as to who to vote for? But quite honestly, I don't think anybody in this room right now could tell me what any of the various parties stand for in terms of environmental legislation, whether it's banning plastic bags or whatever it is. When it comes to the issue of abortion, if you're a woman's right advocate, is there any party that is in favor of abortion? Who do you know and what do you know to vote for? So I think for me, Graham, that is absolutely key to this question of access to information and elections. That having been said, myself and Zoe and Emily accompanied our special rapporteur to a meeting with the president this week. I think, generally speaking, I'm positive about that meeting, and I think one of the reasons is that access to information, as I say, everybody thinks, oh, that's an issue for NGOs, it's a fuzzy issue, and what does it mean? But I'd like to thank the Special Rapporteur for really, in very clear terms, and sometimes it's good when it comes from an outsider, because we like stuck records here, nobody kind of listens to us. But I think the President, I could see, was really impressed by the arguments he put forward on the importance of an ATI law. Other issues that were related, for example, the Commissioner bringing in the dangers of shutting down the internet, which is happening in many African countries. It's not on the cards here, hopefully, anytime soon, but I think it helps to conscientize the politicians about the dangers of doing such things. So from my part, I saw a great deal of interest from the President, and I think the meeting went on for an hour or more, so he was very engaged with the subject, and so he had with him the Deputy Minister of Information, and of course he raised the critical issue of where we are with this bill. Again, that delegation didn't necessarily know the history. Action Namibia has been really involved with an ATI bill since day one. In fact, we workshopped very closely with the Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, and we took the AU model law and we tweaked it to local circumstances with the help of also local lawyers and so on. And that was the bill that actually went then to the Minister, and the then Minister of ICT was Minister Twoya, who wasn't really invested in this bill or the process at all, and so it kind of sat around gathering dust, and only recently has it been revitalized again. And I think, again, mainly the strong argument with the President is Namibia's rankings in press freedom, which are now back at #1 in Africa. And I think he's very conscious of the fact that if this law doesn't go through, and doesn't go through soon, that it's definitely going to impact on our status going forward. That having been said, I think in Action, it's not as though we want a law, any law. It's got to be a good law. and it also has to be supported by other legislation which doesn't make this law counterproductive in terms of security and intelligence considerations. So I think that's the big issue right now. As to the status of the bill, I found myself a little confused. The Deputy Minister said that the bill has been signed off and is with the legal drafters. So I found that a little bit confusing. But anyway, from Action's perspective, I think now our big push will be to push government really as soon as possible to make that bill public, so that we in the civil society sector and the broader population can have insight to the ATI bill to make sure that in fact it's really going to serve us well in the long run, and not just be window dressing simply because government feels it is under duress to put this out. So I think, Graham,